Thank you. I'm Vic Moore. I'm your J Club president. Thank you so much for coming tonight. To President McAllister, to the members of the Board of Trustees and the Alumni Board that are here tonight, to the former Johnny athletes and the friends of Johnny Athletics, to the friends and family of our inductees, and most of all, to the 1963 football team and the 12 inductees that'll be honored tonight. Welcome. Welcome to the inaugural J Club Hall of Honor banquet and induction ceremony. Welcome to Guild Hall, where we have, for the first time in one place, some of the greatest Johnny athletes in the history of our state, and where we will continue to meet, hopefully every year, with the next assembly of the greatest athletes at St. John's. And welcome to history being made, where we begin to write the book on the story of Johnny Athletics tonight. I also want to do a special welcome to Jim Smith and the family of John Ghilardi that are here today. Jim and John were our two charter inductees that were selected last year and had ceremonies earlier. But thank you so much for coming, Jim. And I know Jim Ghilardi is here for John's family. Thank you for being here. I also want to welcome Will Galash. Will is going to receive the Student Athlete Award shortly after I'm done, and hopefully that won't be too long. And welcome to Lou Raiola, who won the Baskin Football Award at halftime today. And I want to thank him for his leadership on the program he's going to have in the morning before the Johnny Tommy football game. It's the pregame to the for Purpose, where they're going to stack food for the Bahama Hurricane Relief Program. So, Lou, congratulations on your award, and thank you for your leadership on that. I hope we can see a lot of you folks at that. Now, I'd like to take a minute just to thank those people that were helpful in getting the Hall of Honor put together. First of all, I want to thank my fellow J Club board members, and particularly the subcommittee that's chaired by Tom Freeman and Luke Vestrom and Dan Murphy, who worked so hard in putting the Hall of Honor together. You guys continue to make us proud. Thank you for your work on this. I also want to thank the staff from Alumni Relations and Institutional Advancement, all of the work you did in putting this event together. To the athletic department and the coaches and the media folks, thank you for all the publicity and promotion you did for this event. I also want to do a special thank you to Michael Hemeset, the former president of St. John's. Thank you. Michael couldn't be here tonight, but he wanted me to tell you he's here in spirit. And Michael, if it weren't for you, for your early support of the Hall of Honor, we wouldn't be here tonight. I also want to thank Mark Lewandowski, who's the radio voice of St. John's, who's going to be our MC tonight, and Frank Rakowski, who did the videos that you're really going to be impressed with as we look at that. So, you know, it's altogether proper and fitting that we're having this induction ceremony in Guild Hall. Guild Hall was built in 1901. It's about the same time that St. John's established its first booster club. That booster club evolved into the Monogran Club in 1928. It was renamed the J Club in 1949, and it has grown from a kind of a fraternal organization of ex-jocks, but former varsity lettermen, to a broad-based organization that involves alums, non-alums, women, men, essentially anybody who supports Johnny Athletics. The Guild Hall, more fondly known as Rat Hall, has also been around for a long time. You know, this was the place where Johnny Blood McNally and John Craig had their lockers. This is the place where Bill Sexton, scored 49 points in one game on this floor, a record that still stands today. This is the place where the 1963 football team dressed, and John McDowell dressed for practices and our home games, and then walked across campus to the football field. That's right, they didn't run. They never ran, and they still, Gary's not here, so I can say this. They still don't run today, they walk. That was started by you guys. And this is the place where Jim Smith and John Ghilardi had their first offices. And I think they were just back there someplace. So this is altogether an appropriate place to have the induction of the Hall of Honor. So why do we have a Hall of Honor? I've been asked that many times. It fits with the mission of the J Club. The mission of the J Club is to raise money and to build camaraderie for Johnny Athletics. Just look at the camaraderie that we're building here tonight as we honor the 63 team and the other inductees. And hopefully, we can maybe raise a few bucks at the same time. And more importantly, we're beginning to tell the story about Johnny Athletics that needs to be told. Second reason is that most colleges and universities have an athletic hall of fame. We were the only school, I think, in the MIAC that didn't have one. But guess what? We don't have an athletic hall of fame. We have an athletic hall of honor because St. John's is not about fame. St. John's is about honor. St. John's is about community, fellowship, and teamwork, not about individual fame. And that's why we have a Hall of Honor, and that's why the J Club is always going to be true to our Benedictine values. So that's a sign for me to wrap it up. So thank you very much. Hope you enjoy your meal. Sit back, relax, and watch the story of Johnny Athletics begin to be told. This is going to be the greatest story, the greatest event you've ever been to. Now it's my I'm not paying him to do that. It's my great pleasure now to introduce Adam Herbst, the secretary of the J Club board, who is going to present to you the Father Wilfred Tyson Student Athlete Award.
Thanks, Vic. Thank you, Vic. Thanks, everybody. So in 2013, the J Club started the Father Wilfred Tyson Student Athlete Award. And this award recognizes our senior varsity athletes, one of them usually, sometimes two, for their excellent academic achievement and their on-field or on-court or athletic performance. And the award is, of course, named after our beloved Father Wilfred, who will be inducted tonight with a Distinguished Service Award. This year, the J Club did select two recipients for the athletic year that just ended, 2018-2019. The first is David Stockman. David is our first three-time academic All-American in the history of St. John's. He graduated in May as a double major in philosophy and economics with a 4.0 GPA. On the basketball court, he was a two-time MIAC All-First Teamer, and last season he led our team in scoring, minutes played, three-pointers, assists, and steals, and he finished as the Johnny's all-time leading three-point shooter and fourth in all-time scoring. So David can't be with us tonight because he is in Rome, Italy, doing a year of service through the Benedictine Volunteer Corps. But Father Wilfred, as you can see, did present him with his award in May before he left for Rome. Congratulations, David. The other senior selected by the J Club is with us tonight, Will Galach. Will majored in biochemistry and was active in the Entrepreneurial Scholars Program here on campus. He graduated in May and is currently pursuing graduate studies at the University of Notre Dame, and he's in town, like I said, with us here tonight. Will, on the football field, was a consensus first-team All-American wide receiver last year. He caught 72 passes for 1,282 yards and 17 touchdowns, and he set a school record of 256 receiving yards in the unforgettable win over St. Thomas last October. At this time, let's hear it for Will Galach. And Will, please come up here. Vic, come up here. Father Wilfred, come up here. At this time, Vic and Wilfred, please do the honors of presenting Will with his Father Wilfred Tyson Student Athlete Award.
Will, it's my great pleasure to present you with this well-deserved award. All I can say after I've heard what Adam said is that you continue to make us very, very proud. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I just have a couple words to say. And first and foremost, I want to say thank you to Father Wilfred and Institutional Advancement and everyone else who put on such an amazing night here tonight. To receive this award in the name of Father Wilfred and alongside Johnny Grade and David Stockman, it truly is an honor. So thank you very much for bestowing this upon me. The second thing that I would like to say, and the final thing that I'd like to address tonight, is just how inspirational it is to be amongst this crowd on a night like this, with the intent being of bettering St. John's and St. John's athletics. So thank you, each and every one of you, for everything that you have done for me, directly or inadvertently through St. John's athletics. And as always, go Johnnies.
Congratulations. Very well done. Congrats, Will. Very well deserved and very well said. It is now my honor to introduce my colleague, Father Timo Backus, and he is going to provide us with a meal blessing. Timo?
Let us pray. Almighty God, we come before you this homecoming night with hearts full of gratitude. We thank you for this place we call St. John's, and for the many gifts you have showered on every man who was and is part of this place. In a special way tonight, we thank you for the blessings you have shown to our inductees. Thank you for the talents you gave them and the spirit of sharing them with this university. May we all strive to value community over self-service, love over hate, and honor over fame. May what we celebrate here tonight in our inductees be a sign to our world as to what is possible and necessary for the future. We ask this through the intercession of St. John the Baptist, our patron, and St. Benedict, our founder. And may the Lord continue to bless us all forever and ever.
Thank you, Timo. The dining services staff will release the tables to the buffet, and once everybody has their food, we'll resume our program. Thank you. All right, everybody, please continue eating, and we are going to jump into our program where we will begin inducting our very first class into the J Club Hall of Honor. And to lead us through that, shepherd the program, the radio voice of the Johnnies, Mark Lewandowski.
Thank you. Thank you very much. You know, a former colleague of mine, Tom Linneman, said that the best job on campus is being the starting quarterback. He may be right. He's had that job. I'll never have it, and that's a good thing. But the second best job, maybe besides being president, is getting to be the voice of the Johnnies. And I'll tell you why. There is so much, and I appreciate this, admiration for the work that is done on radio, not just by myself, but I see Mike Carr is here, Brian Backus is not here, Charlie is not here. But those guys make me sound great because they do a great job on our broadcasts. And we hear about that weekly. And I want to just say thank you for your feedback. I also want to say I'm very honored to be part of what is a great and historic night for the St. John's University Athletic Department. You look around, you see so much talent in this room that competed for St. John's. All-Americans, all-conference players, and tonight we honor the best of the best. And so let us do that tonight and show these people that we really care about what they have done on the field as they enter the Hall of Honor. Our first honoree is Johnny Blood McNally.
John McNally may have risen to national fame and glory on the football field, but that arguably wasn't even the strongest sport for the man known as Johnny Blood during his illustrious athletic career at St. John's. McNally was a dominant performer in track and field, winning an MIAC title in the high jump in 1921. And he was a team captain and leading scorer in basketball as well. He even gave baseball a try, throwing a 3-hit shutout victory against McAllister in his very first collegiate game. But it was through football that he established his lasting legacy, going on to a legendary NFL career in which his teams won 4 league titles. He later returned to his alma mater as head football coach from 1950 to 1952 and was a member of the NFL Hall of Fame's charter class in 1963. Welcome John McNally to the SJU J Club Hall of Honor.
Accepting the award for John McNally, of course, is our own head football coach, Gary Foshing. Gary, thanks for coming up tonight and accepting the award. And can you talk about how John McNally fits into the St. John's University football legacy?
Well, first of all, I told Mark this story earlier, but when I was in probably 6th, 7th, 8th grade, when I probably should have been reading science books, I was reading sports books, and one of the stories I read was about Johnny Blood McNally. So I actually know a little bit about him. He actually, an incredible athlete. He came to St. John's. He was about 6'2", 160 pounds, and fast and shifty, from what I understand. Maybe kind of like a old-time Will Galach guy. But he was an incredible football player at St. John's. He ended up leaving St. John's and going to Notre Dame. And when he got there, the coach at Notre Dame said, well, you're going to be a tackle. You're too big to play running back. So he left Notre Dame, never played it down for Notre Dame, and went on to greatness, obviously, in the NFL after that. But like so many guys we've had throughout history here at St. John's, he's a great example of what hard work and perseverance and, just a willingness to work hard all the time. I think, this honor is well-deserved.
And not only that, but his impact after becoming a pro athlete, because St. John's can lay claim to that, and that is something that I don't know if it's a big selling point with your program when you talk about the history of it, but it is something you can bring up. No doubt. If you look down in our football hallway, the biggest picture on our wall is of Johnny Blood McNally. Now, nobody probably knows who he is. When we point him out and tell them the story about him, then people understand how big of an impact that he had here at St. John's. And then to come back and coach like he did, for the 3 years that he was here. And I think everybody knows the story when he decided to quit coaching, and they hired a young guy by the name of John Gallardi. And John went and asked Johnny Blood, why are you leaving? And he goes, nobody's ever going to win here. So I guess John kind of proved him wrong. And you are doing that today. And you're having a great season, and hopefully things will continue for you and, of course, the football team this year. Thanks, Gary. Thank you. Gary Foshing accepting the award for Johnny Blood McNally. Up next, we will induct 2 Johnnies receiving J Club Distinguished Service Awards. As the video plays, Tom Arth and Father Wilfred Tyson will come up here and be honored.
Tom Arth wasn't just an outstanding tennis player during his time at St. John's. He was also the team's head coach for several seasons. And the 1966 graduate did all that while still finding time to be the student manager for the basketball team. He has remained a fervent supporter of Johnny Athletics in the years since his graduation. Father Wilfred Tyson, meanwhile, has been a constant presence around SJU athletics since first arriving in Collegeville as a student at St. John's Prep in the 1940s. In fact, the 1952 St. John's graduate is known as the Abbey's top sports fan, a title for which there have been plenty of contenders. The award handed out annually to SJU's top student athlete now bears his name. Congratulations to both recipients of the J Club Distinguished Service Award.
We're going to start with Tom Arth here and talk about, obviously, people may or may not know that you played tennis here. But not only that, you also helped coach the team. How did that happen?
Well, you know, Mark, I had lived just a few blocks from St. Thomas. And I graduated from Cretin High School, won the state tennis title a couple years, had good grades, and of course they were all over me like you know what. And my folks were very much opposed for me to leave town. They wanted me to be under their control. But luckily I had a great neighbor, fellow Johnny here, Mike Murphy. He came to join me tonight. Asked him to come over and talk to my folks and put a good word in for St. John's. So he came over a couple of times, and obviously I wound up at St. John's. So I got up here, try out for the tennis team. Father Alfred Deutsch was the coach. I was an upcoming freshman. I'm not bragging, but I beat every man on the team. So I was number one. I think that kind of upset him.
It's not bragging if you can prove it.
The season was over. Alfred calls me in and says, I'm getting up in age. How would you like to take over as player coach? I thought, oh, God, that's pretty good. I said, I already have a job. He said, well, this will be your job. I said, heck of a lot better than working the slop line over there in the refectory. He said, I'm going to talk to George Nürnberger, see if I can pull it through to you. And I said, well, I got to talk to my agent to make sure I get a no-cut contract here for 3 years. I should have got a no-cut contract for life. You should have, yes. So he comes back and says, you got the job. So that's how it all began. We had great teams. I enjoyed coaching the guys for 3 years. I think we finished second or third every year, and that's how it began.
You know, and a lot of people may not know this about Tom. You know, he talks about Mike Murphy bringing you up, but you kind of paid that forward along the way, didn't you? You would take kids up here to St. John's and turn prospective students into future Johnnies. Do you want to hazard a guess as to how many kids you did that for?
Mark, I can't tell you how many, but in my younger, better health days, I did quite a bit of it. But here's the story I want to relate to you folks. After I came up here, and I came back and went to a lot of the games, most every sport I could go to. And then now that I don't get around as much anymore, I talk to these graduates at the golf tournaments I work at. And here's the question I ask every one of these students, and this is 100% true. I said, how did you like St. John's? What was your experience? And 100% of these young men said it was the greatest experience they've ever had in their life. And they said, you know what? It's not the wins or losses on the courts or the fields. It's because of the wonderful coaches we have. And, you know, I've befriended all these coaches through the years, all these young guys, Pat Haws, Gary, you know, and just continue on with Doug and all of them. I just keep in touch with them. It's what these coaches do off the field, their father figure, their mentoring. You play sports for 2-3 years, then you got to get out into the real world and look at all the great people we've graduated here. And honest to God, folks, every student, every past, present, that's their message.
Thank you, Tom. Appreciate it. So, a quick story. I was hosting the Gallardi football luncheon, and I introduced myself. I'm the voice of the Johnnies, Mark Lewandowski. Glad to see so many familiar faces. And I turned it over to Father Wilfred for the meal prayer blessing. And do you remember what you said when you stepped up to the microphone? What did you tell everybody?
Well, Mark says, I'm the voice of the bear, and I said, I'm the voice of the Holy Spirit.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, you did very well there. Yeah. Legend has it you haven't missed a football game ever. And, okay, maybe one or two, a handful. Obviously, you're a great football fan, and is there a moment or two since 1945, when you started attending the games, that stand out as the most memorable?
About 100 of them, I think, yeah.
Well, we don't have that kind of time, but a couple of them.
One of them is the game against St. Thomas in 1985. With about 2 minutes left to go, St. Thomas got the ball, and all they had to do to win the game was take the knee a couple of times, but their quarterbacks ran out of bounds twice to the anger of the coach at that time. And so St. John's got the ball with less than a minute to go, and threw a couple of sideline passes. And then John asked Don Pribble, "Can you make a field goal from here?" He says, "I can do it." So he kicked a 49-yard field goal. We won 16-15.
Very memorable. Excellent win.
Yeah. Then after the game, one of the coaches from St. Thomas ran over to John, and he said, "It's just like you said in your book. If possible, let them beat themselves."
Exactly. What keeps you coming back to all these games and watching all these great student athletes? I saw you at a football practice earlier this year. You're taking it all in before the season got started, which I imagine is a weekly occurrence for you to watch a little practice.
Well, some of the monks say that my enthusiasm for St. Johnny sports is due to my prolonged adolescence. but my enthusiasm for sports is because I see Johnny Athletics as a wonderful example, demonstration of community spirit. And the giants that we see here tonight in sports history, they would be the first ones to say that their achievements were not possible without the help of a lot of other people. The trainers keep the players playable. The equipment managers keep the equipment usable. And the scout teams are essential for preparing the next grade. And what is St. John's athletics without Mark and Lewandowski and Frank Rakowski? You can't beat those guys.
Thank you very much. Yeah, Frank's doing a great job here putting out videos, and I hear there's more to come.
One more thing, the coaches also contribute to their successes.
Are you going to see Gary on Monday morning? Are you going to see Gary on Monday morning? Give him your scouting wrap-up of the game. Give him a few things to work on.
I think he doesn't need it today.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
One more thing.
Yeah. This is your time.
Oh, okay. Well, there's one statistic that we boast a lot about at St. John's, and that's that almost year after year, the attendance of we have the record for our attendance of football games at D3. So,
Right.
so we fans have managed to win a national title for a lot of years, and I feel fortunate that. For nearly 80 years, I've been one of those statistics. But at St. John's, there's no place like St. John's where they would have somebody like me going into a Hall of Honor.
I don't. You are.
And so I am deeply grateful to Vic and Adam and the committee for putting me alongside all of these great giants.
You're a giant here at St. John's. Father Wilfred and Tom Arth. Let's congratulate them. Thank you, gentlemen. Our next inductee is Bill Sexton.
Bill Sexton didn't just rewrite the St. John's basketball record book. He essentially created it. The Jumping Johnny from Jasper finished his college career as the school's all-time leading scorer to that point and still ranks 5th on the all-time list today. He was the first St. John's player to earn All-MIAC honors twice and the first to be named an All-American during his junior season in 1954. His 49 points against McAllister that year set a single-game school scoring record that is yet to be topped. In addition, he has given back to his alma mater in the decade since his graduation, a generous legacy reflected in the many gifts and contributions his family has made to St. John's through the years. Welcome Bill Sexton to the SJU J Club Hall of Honor.
Get another shot. Okay.
I went back to there, so I don't see many of you.
Bill, obviously you had a very distinguished career here at St. John's, but I understand that it may not have happened if not for something that happened the first few months you were on campus.
Can I duck that story? Because it takes quite a while.
I don't know. I guess so. Okay, I got to ask this. You scored 49 points in a game, which is still the school record for points in a game. Were you feeling it that night? Did everything going in right from the get-go?
All I remember is standing over there, and I was very tired. And I shot 32 times, so the guys that I passed the ball to, or they passed the ball to me, probably knowing they weren't ever going to get it back. So,
hey, if you're making them, right? Yeah. When you're hot, you're hot.
Yeah, I was hot, I guess.
I think St. John's would like, and this is a great honor for you, but a big thank you. I mean, Sexton Arena, you keep giving back to St. John's. Why? What drives you to do that? And we all very much appreciate it.
Well, when I didn't answer the first question, I'd like to ask myself a question, because I've thought about this so much. I have two disappointments in my time at St. John's. I didn't play football for John Gallardi and basketball for Jim Smith.
They're great men, and you are now joined them in the Hall of Honor. Anything else you'd like to say about this great honor for you, Bill?
Well, I appreciate it very much, especially going in behind two men I respect so much. And I'm getting a little emotional.
That's okay. It's your night. You can do that.
And St. John's has been such an important part to my family and my life that I'm honored to give back.
Thank you for giving back. Thank you for joining the Hall of Honor tonight. Bill, I don't know if you know this, but you're getting a standing ovation. Thank you, Bill. All right. Our next inductee is John Craig. He is recovering from a surgery, so accepting in his place is his brother Andrew Craig. And his teammate Chuck Sharansky will come up here and talk about his career here at St. John's.
With John Craig leading the way, the Johnnies dethroned MIAC Power McAllister and embarked on a streak of 5 straight conference titles in cross country and 4 straight in track and field. Individually, Craig was a 3-time MIAC champion both in cross country and in the spring at 3 miles. At a time when there were only 2 NCAA divisions, he was second in the nation in cross country as both a junior and senior, and second in the nation on the track at 10,000 meters, setting a school record in 1970, which still stands. Craig's college division cross country finishes saw him advance to the university division championship, where he would finish 21st as a senior, winning All-American honors at the highest level. John Craig, welcome to the J Club Hall of Honor.
Okay, we do have a video from John, and I guess we're going to play that now.
Good evening, Johnny's alumni, faculty, family, and friends. I'm both deeply honored and humbled to be inaugurated into this initial Sports Hall of Fame. I know that there are many other athletes that would be worthy as well. In particular tonight, I'd like to reach out to Coach Smith, thank him for his years of service to Johnny athletes. He did take in the late 1960s a very green group of high school runners and mold us from individuals into a team. Thanks, Coach. I wish you well. To Bob Alpers, Vic Moore, and Dan Murphy, and all the members of the J Club, thanks for putting this event together. Should become a great Johnny tradition. Thanks again. I am deeply honored.
Andrew, let me start with you first. Obviously, it's an amazing honor for John, and your family must be super proud about him being honored and going into the Hall of Honor, one of the first class.
Yep, and we've talked about the legacy St. John's leaves behind after you leave the field, and John had an illustrious career as an orthopedic surgeon and basically is the main supporter of the parish in his local town there in Rice Lake, and very dedicated to that. And so John's had a wonderful life after he left St. John's too.
And that all started here, right? Chuck, you played with him. What are some of the memories you have of being in competition with him?
Well, first of all, we probably ran a couple thousand miles together, and some of that was just the two of us, so we had a lot of time to talk about a lot of things besides the next race. And one of the things that really stands out about John that wasn't emphasized as much by Tim Miles in the video, by the way, Tim also was a 6-mile champion for in the MIAC as well, like John. But as Father Wilfred talked about, John was the preeminent team member. He's a quiet guy, but he was as concerned about the slowest freshman on the team trying to improve as he was about the core group of us who were preparing to hopefully win some big championships each season. So John was a preeminent team member, and when one of us won or the other one won, it didn't make any difference in our relationship either. We were just on to the next training session and the next time at the reef together having supper after a long training effort.
You know, you guys, at the time, Mac apparently was the top cross-country school in the conference. So what did that feel like to dethrone them and take that top spot?
Well, the best story about it is, first of all, that as many of you saw in the video that honored John for being accepted into this Hall of Honor, it talked about how Jeff Brain, who's here tonight from Seattle, he and John arrived as freshmen and immediately finished first and second, John first, Jeff second in the MIAC cross-country meet 2 months after they got here, which was a far cry from what St. John's cross-country had been up until that year, evidently. So to give a picture of how good John was, and for that matter, how good Jeff was. So John wins 3 out of the 4 MIAC championships in cross country, 3 in track. He was injured for each of the 2 that he didn't win. Goes on to finish as a Division I All-American, not just a Division II All-American with the rest of us, and runs a time at 6 miles that is still the fastest time 49 years later after, And to give you folks a picture of that, a bunch of you all out there have tried a 5K or a 10K. So John's time in the 6 mile which is the equivalent of a 10K, is 4:49 a mile. So to give you an idea, if you've tried a 10K, you can figure out what your mile time was. Somebody's pressing their heart there on the table 1. So John and Jeff arrive. They finish first and second. There's nobody behind them for St. John's that's going to allow them to have a team victory. But Coach Schmitz recruits some good athletes for the next year. I become eligible. I was a transfer in the same year, so I couldn't run with them that first cross-country season with them. Coach Smith figures out that we can hold the conference championship the next year on campus because we're the host team, which usually means you just do all the grunt work for a meet that's held at a golf course someplace in the Twin Cities. But Coach Smith has the brilliant idea that we'll run it on campus. And so we laid out a 5-mile course that started on what was then the intramural fields that's now the soccer complex and the baseball complex and so on. So it started there, does some loops, heads out around. We run in front of Mary Hall a couple of times, I think it was, back down, finish down there. So we knew we were going to win, and so we got you're laughing, but the record interviewed me at one point, and I said it was inconceivable that we could lose, and I was inconceivable Saransky the rest of my time here. So you weren't the only one laughing at that kind of confidence, but there was no way we were going to lose. And so we got the word out to all the Johnnies and Bennies to come out and watch the conference meet on our home turf here right in the middle of campus. And at that time, I would guess that the largest attendance at a cross-country meet anywhere in the country was maybe 150 people at the national championships. So we had over 400 people, we figured, that were out cheering for us on campus. I remember climbing the hill on the other side of the palestra to climb up and then go down for the last time onto the intramural fields. And people were 4 deep screaming at you. It felt like the Tour de France as they're climbing the mountains there. You wonder if you're going to find a route through. So, and we won easily. And the next year, with John still running, we were first, second, third, and fourth in the conference meet, to give you an idea of how dominant we had become in just a couple of years. With John, better than the rest of us. And another way to think about his accomplishments, that 6 mile time, Tim Miles has all the records, and so I went online last night to Johnny Track and Cross Country, looked it up, and there have been 23 distance runners at St. John's over the years who have made at least one All-America team. And out of those 23 runners, nobody has come close to John's 6 mile time 49 years ago.
An amazing athlete, and that's why he's going into the Hall of Honor tonight. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. Our next inductee is John McDowell.
There were many immensely talented players on the 1963 national championship team, but his teammates will tell you there was only one John McDowell. An exceptional athlete for a big man, the offense and defensive tackle was a 2-time All-American and All-MIAC selection. He also played basketball and dominated in track and field, winning 4 conference titles in the discus and 2 in the shot put. He was drafted by the Green Bay Packers and went on to a professional career in both the NFL and Canadian Football League. Welcome, John McDowell, to the St. John's J Club Hall of Honor.
Well, I usually hold, but you want to take it, you can if you want. It's your night. Yeah. There are a lot of people who would like to do that at times, I think. So, he played for 2 legendary coaches, John Gallardi and Vince Lombardi. How can you compare and contrast those guys?
Well, first of all, if I hadn't played for John, I don't think I would have had any success. And the real secret of John Gallardi was not how he taught you how to play football. There are people who can teach you how to play football. He taught you how to live life. And I have a situation where I was at Green Bay, and there was a guy by the name of, well, he was from Northwestern, All-American, no-cut contract. And we were watching films. They break films down to offense, defense, and all the special teams. Well, when you're a rookie, you're only looking at yourself, okay? And I didn't get the tackle. And Lombardi said, "Who's that?" I was scared to beat crap. And I said, "Me." "Who's me?" I said, "McDowell." And he got up and he said, "You know, this isn't the type of effort we have at Green Bay. You better improve quicker, you're going to be gone." And he walked up and pointed at Lloyd Voss. And Lloyd Voss never said anything. I guarantee you, if another person was from St. John's, they would have raised their hand and said, "Coach, that's not him, that's me." And that's what I got out of this school. This school, it changed my life. If I had gone anywhere else, I probably wouldn't have been successful. But GAG, I remember when I was a freshman, and Duluth, you might remember, they wanted to kick them out of the league. They were so good. And I sat down, I said, "Coach, do you want to kick them out?" He says, "No, we're going to get better." So we lost to them 12-6. 6-0. We beat them 12-6, and we beat them 60-0 on their field. And it was beautiful.
You not only played football, but track and field, basketball. I mean, besides playing for John Gallardi, which I know is probably your favorite memory, what else stands out about your athletic career here at St. John's?
God, there was a guy from, I forget the school, And I mean, I was good at the disc right away. Shot, I hated it. You know, it's heavy, but I'd win at it. But disc, I'm always really good, and I'm like 20 feet better than anybody. And we're playing on my court, and this guy, and I look at it, and I see his tag out there. And he's out 168 feet. He was hitting 120. And I came up, I said, geez, did you do that? He says, you've won too much.
Wow.
Okay. What do you say after that? You want a date? I mean, come on.
Well, John, congratulations on making it into the Hall of Honor, and you'll be back up here with the 63 team here pretty quickly.
Well, anybody who wants a great education and a great education in life, come to St. John's.
Thank you. In fact, John, you can stay right up here because the 1963 football team is our next inductee into the Hall of Honor.
5.5 decades later, it's easy to take the Johnny's football program's status as a national power for granted. But such a successful tradition must start somewhere, and the 1963 football team laid down that foundation. Having finished 9-0, but being passed over for a berth in the NAIA postseason the year before, the team entered the 1963 season with something to prove. And the Johnnies wasted no time picking up where they left off, outscoring opponents 248-45 during the regular season, en route to the MIAC title. This time, St. John's would make the playoffs, rolling past Emporia in the national semifinal to set up a matchup against Prairie View A&M in the national championship game. Though their opponent's roster featured a number of players who went on to great success in the professional ranks, the Johnnies emerged victorious, delivering the school's first national championship.
Welcome the 1963 Johnnies to the SJU J Club Hall of Honor.
Congratulations, gentlemen. Adam Herbst back with you momentarily before I give it back to Mark. I was talking with some of the team members last night, and one thing I want to do before we acknowledge each of these gentlemen by name, I want to remember their team members who have passed away. Mike Collins, Fred Kramer, Joe Hartle, assistant coach Ed Hasbrook, Jack Hickey, Dave Honer, Paul Lubinsky, Tom Spees, trainer Tom Waugh, Pat Whalen, Gary Uso, and of course, head coach John Gallardi. A moment of silence, please. And now, a round of applause for those gentlemen. With us here tonight, we have team captain Bernie Beckman, Tim Delmont, Jim Day, John Erickson, Tom Gillum, Terry Hartman, Bill Hassing, Jim Harikoff, Jim Mahoney, John McCormick, of course, John McDowell, Tom Mackesy, Joe Muka, team captain Craig Myers, team captain Ken Roaring, Mike Scherer, Bob Spinner, and John Traxellis. Before I move on, did I miss anyone? We're good. How about a round of applause for these guys?
Okay, I think we're supposed to do a quick interview here with a couple of the team captains. So if those gentlemen would like to come to center stage here. Who's up for, all right. Well, it's great, you know, I get to read these names on this date in Johnny football history, and it's great to put faces with the legendary names. So How did this team come together? I mean, there's always a sense of community here at St. John's. It's one of the first things people talk about when they're a student here is the sense of community. Tell us what it was like back then.
Okay, but I can remember that the second day of practice in the fall, all us freshmen got together at Tommy Hall. Well, I was from St. Cloud Cathedral, and the people in the room were really against me and other teams. We played De La Salle, there was Bob Spinner, and I really respected him. And then there was Tom McAsee from St. Cloud, from the Preps. There was Dave Owner from Cold Spring. So all these people were just close to me and very competitive. Well, sitting in that room, all of a sudden, didn't hate any of these guys. All of a sudden, there was tremendous respect. So we each looked at each other, and I think from that day forward, our team started to come together. And then probably about 7 days later, we had a scrimmage. And sure enough, Bernie Beckman stepped forward, and he played halfback ever since then. So way back then, the first couple of days, our team started to come together.
This is a question I kind of like to ask Bernie because it's one of John's great stories. By the way, Bernie is Patrick Strom, was he a nephew, a great nephew, or?
My sister's grandson.
Yeah. A little legacy there. I did not know you were related to one of our second best three-point shooter we've ever had here at St. John's.
The record for
a year.
From the end of one season until the beginning of the next.
Yeah. David Stockman's pretty good. Talk to me a little bit about facing that Prairie View A&M team, and you had to go up against Otis Taylor, who played in a Super Bowl, I believe, if not one. In Super Bowl IV. So that had to be quite the interesting game for you guys.
Well, first of all, we had no idea how good this team was. As John Gallardi would say many times afterwards, ignorance is bliss. We had no idea. They had Kenny Houston, who's in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. They had Otis Taylor. They had Jim Carney. And Jim Carney and Otis Taylor played for Kansas City and the team that beat the Vikings. And they got us down early. Their first play from scrimmage, they scored. So we were down 7-0, and then we got a couple of big plays. Bob Spinner ran a punt back for a touchdown. John McCormick intercepted a pass, ran it back for a touchdown, but we were still down 14-3 or 13 at halftime. So we came out, we took the lead, and I think we just persevered as a team. And we had one thing that they didn't have. We had the greatest football coach in the history of college football, John Gallardi.
Joe, do you remember John's speech at halftime, what he said?
John's? Well, John, a lot of us, the person you should talk to about this, Ken Raring, because it was Ken Raring who really can give you the answer to that question.
Actually, I can't.
Why not? Why can't?
I don't remember.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Joe, you can tell the story.
I think, we were down, but, one of the stories I always tell about Ken and this team, and I think this team had the heart of a champion. And one of the things is we just had confidence that we would, and I think John had confidence in us, and we had confidence in Jim. And, I think John was never up or down. He was just saying, we know what we have to do. And I think we just went out and did it. And that's the story of the team. Just John's motto was, ordinary people doing ordinary things in extraordinary ways. And that's the way we went out the second half and did the job.
Thank you, Joe. The 1963 national champions into the Hall of Honor. Have good memories of those times. So watch your steps, gentlemen. All right, our next inductee is from the sport of hockey, and it is Adam Hanna.
Adam Hanna's individual accomplishments at St. John's speak for themselves. The goalie from Owatonna was a 3-time All-American, the MIAC Player of the Year as a junior in 2005, and the 2006 Sid Watson Award winner as the nation's top Division III college hockey player. He still holds numerous school records, which include best career goals against average, most shutouts, and most wins by a St. John's goaltender. With this, he is still most proud of the success the teams he played on achieved. Hanna led the Johnnies to 2 MIAC regular season titles. The bonds he formed with his teammates in those years remain strong today. Welcome Adam Hanna to the SJU J Club Hall of Honor.
In fact, Adam, you were part of the first hockey teams I think I got to broadcast. I don't think I'm any better a broadcaster now than I was then, but that's okay. But you would stand on your head. You won some awards, many awards. What stands out? What do you remember the most with regards to the honors you received while at St. John's?
Well, I think as anybody who has been up on this stage and has won an individual award, you can't do it without great teammates. I was lucky enough to be on some really great teams and have really great coaching. And it's just, the stars sort of aligned for me to end up on this stage. I can honestly say this is probably the biggest award and the biggest honor that I've received. When I competed here, you're competing against people who are your own age. So to be honored over 150 years of Johnny athletics is pretty humbling.
And do you remember the crowds and the atmosphere? I mean, maybe 1 or 2 games stand out, probably a Tommy-Johnny matchup at the National Hockey Center. And I know those crowds got to be pretty big at different times.
Yeah, they definitely did. And like I said, I played on some really good teams. When I transferred in here, I honestly didn't know a lot about St. John's. I found out pretty quick it was a football school. The first fall I was here, the team won the national title with another guy who was going to be up here. Blake Elliott was on that team. So that was my first experience, and just seeing how the community supported those teams as we got into our hockey seasons, and did really well and continued to move up national rankings. We continued to draw fans off campus to the National Hockey Center. So I really think it's a testament to this community and to St. John's as a whole, and I couldn't be prouder to be a part of the family.
Still in touch with John Harrington? You guys, I mean, you must have had a tight relationship. I would imagine the head coach and the goalie, there's a lot of talk there.
Yeah, I still talk to him once in a while. He called me the other day, so I haven't called him back yet, so thanks for the reminder.
You're welcome.
Call him back here after this, because I know he had a game tonight, I think so. Yeah, still stay in touch with a lot of the people. I mean, this is, like I've said, this is my college experience. This is the people that I keep in touch with the most.
Thank you, Adam, and congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Adam Hanna into the Hall of Honor. Our next inductee is Sammy Schmitz.
Before Sammy Schmitz arrived at St. John's in the fall of 1999, the Johnny golf team had never made the Division III national meet. Since that time, the Johnnies have been to 17 of the last 20, and the Farmington High School graduate is a big reason why. A fearless competitor and an outstanding leader and teammate, Sammy is the only 4-time All-American, All-Region, and All-MIAC performer in school history, and he was twice named Conference Player of the Year. Sammy earned MIAC medalist honors as a senior and finished second on 2 other occasions. He capped his college career by leading the Johnnies to a 3rd-place finish at Nationals in 2003. Since graduating, Sammy has gone on to be one of the most decorated amateur golfers in Minnesota history. By winning the 2015 U.S. Mid-Amateur Championship, Sammy earned the right to play in the 2016 Masters. Please welcome Sammy Schmitz to the J Club Hall of Honor.
Congratulations. Thanks. So, as the video I think talked a little bit about is St. John's. You trace your years here to St. John's becoming the power that it became, 2 national championships, getting on that road. How did that all come together with regards to the team under Bob Alpers?
Well, I think Bob hit the jackpot with the high school class of 1997. He recruited 5 really good players, and I knew one of them really well. And once my class came, there was 3 or 4 good players as well. It became very competitive, and there was a sense of camaraderie and competitiveness within the team, and we just continued to get better and better. And my freshman year was the first year we went to nationals. It was such a trip to be a part of. I remember when that announcement came out, we were running around screaming. It was so much fun going to nationals that year.
Are there any favorite memories at Bob, when he goes on a road trip, he likes the kids to try new things. Did you get to partake in any of that, and anything stand out from your road time with Bob Alpers?
Yeah, he didn't let us drink a lot of beer, I can tell you that right now.
That's being a good coach. Come on.
See a lot of seafood. We did some exploring. We went down to Myrtle Beach for the first time, and a lot of things like that, and it was fun. We always had a good time with that.
So you have done something that, I imagine you're the only guy in the room that's done this. You've played Augusta. And for a lot of people, that's a bucket list if they could try to make it happen, a dream come true. What was that like playing at the Masters?
It was unbelievable. Just the sheer beauty of Augusta National. If you haven't been there, I would definitely recommend going. But I got to play the front 9 with Ricky Fowler. That was a lot of fun. I remember looking at my friends. They were just freaking out about it. Got to play the back 9 with Henrik Stenson, Louis Oosthuizen, and skip the ball across on 16. But I think the things that stand out the most are my dad and I went down there in November for the first time, and it was just absolutely special for me to go down there with my dad for the first time. And I think we played 36 holes that day. Every day I played 36 holes that they let me on the course. And then the par 3 contest with my wife Natalie, who's sitting over there caddying, and my 2 daughters. It was just so much fun.
It's a great memory, obviously, to have, and one you'll never forget. Congratulations on making it into the Hall of Honor.
Thank you.
Sammy Schmitz, 03 Johnny, into the Hall of Honor. Our next inductee, and they call him Frankie Alphabet, but we'll call him Frank Wachlarowicz.
There has been no more dominant player on the basketball court at St. John's over the years than Frank Wachlarowicz. Nicknamed Frankie Alphabet, the Little Falls High School graduate still holds numerous school records, including those for career points and rebounds. He was a 4-time All-MIAC pick, earning conference MVP honors as both a junior and senior. And he remains the only 2-time All-American in program history. His teams won 2 conference titles, including his senior season in 1978-79, when the Johnnies put together a 27-game winning streak. Welcome Frank Wachlarowicz to the SJU J Club Hall of Honor.
Frank, congratulations, and talk a little bit about that year that Jim Smith, and by the way, good job, Smitty, on the voiceover. They've all been done well leading into this, but talk about that year and the 27-game winning streak, and just what you remember that stands out the most.
Well, what really stands out is Jim Smith, how he got the MIAC Coach of the Year, District 13 Coach of the Year, and I remember Pat McKenzie, Sr., ran the entire offense, and I did the entire defense, and Jim just sat there. I just don't get it.
So you didn't get all the honors you're entitled to? Which one did you want? Did you want MIAC Coach of the Year or District 13? Sounds like you have to share with Pat Sr.
Yes.
Take them both?
Yes.
You're still involved with the program. You're helping out Pat Jr. with the basketball summer camps, aren't you?
2 great coaches, 2 great individuals, Pat McKenzie Jr. and Connor O'Brien. And come up here every 2 weeks during the summer, 7th, 8th, and 9th graders, and then we have 10th through 12th. A lot of fun, a lot of energy spent, and it's a real enjoyable time.
Teaching your favorite moves, do you like doing that?
Just ask Franklin about the drop step.
I remember that. And I also remember, and this may have happened more than once, but I thought Smitty told me about a time, and it might have been at Augsburg. Did the crowd get on you in pregame warm-ups, and they were saying how overrated you were, and did you answer them in some certain way in the first, 30 seconds of the game?
I think this is Jim's story that probably halfway through the first half, the crowd at Augsburg started chanting, "Frank can't dunk, Frank can't dunk." And the very next play, down the court we went, inside pass, drop step, two-handed dunk. And didn't do anything to the crowd, didn't mock them, didn't sneer them, just turned around and played defense.
As you would be expected. Good job. Congratulations, Frank.
Thanks, Mark.
You bet. Thank you. Frank Wachlarowicz into the Hall of Honor. Our next inductee is Matt Zelen.
Success in the pool became synonymous with Matt Zelen during his collegiate swimming career. Matt turned in a total of 9 All-American performances at the Division III national meet, including a national title in the 50-yard freestyle as a senior in 1999. He won 13 MIAC titles in individual and relay events. Matt remains the school record holder in 3 events to this day, and he went on to qualify for the 2000 U.S. Olympic trials after graduating from St. John's in 1999. Welcome, Matt Zelen, to the SJU J Club Hall of Honor.
Matt, you're an accomplished swimmer here at St. John's, and congratulations on the Hall of Honor. Winning the 50 free, the national championship. Take us back to that moment. What did it feel like?
It was such an amazing culmination to the career I had at St. John's. I had been so close a couple years. My freshman year, I got second, and I got second and third a couple other times. But to achieve that kind of pinnacle as an NCAA athlete my senior year was fantastic. And it kind of it started off when, and I'll never forget this, a phone call that Pat Haws and I, when I made the decision to come to St. John's, and I called Pat Haws. We shared the excitement. I think Pat said, "Hold on a second," when I told him I was coming to St. John's, and I could hear him scream in the background. And I basically wanted to do the same thing. But between that call and my senior year, the national championship, so many experiences, the team, every aspect of it, that moment to be able to stand up on the podium and represent St. John's, and everything that led to that moment. It was such just a cool pinnacle culmination to the entire career.
And you had a pretty big moment later on too, the Tonight Show, and that. Talk about that and how that is probably a pretty nice memory overall.
Yeah, I would say that as it's a fantastic memory because it's part of St. John's in my career and every aspect of it. But for those of you that don't know, I'll remember a couple things, and this will give you a good indication of the whole event. A couple things I'll never forget. One was when the gun went off and I dove into the water. This was a big meet. This was at St. John's at our home pool. It was an invitational. We had swimmers from the whole Midwest there. And so I wanted to win the race. I hit the water, and I'll never forget the feeling of my suit ballooning up with water and ripping down to my knees. And the moment I was like, I'm 100% naked in front of hundreds of people, and at that moment I was like, oh, my grandma's up there watching this. This will be an interesting experience. But it was the 100-yard butterfly, and couldn't have been any other stroke. You guys get that?
Yeah, a little embarrassing, maybe.
A little bit. But the butterfly, you breathe above the water. So the coolest thing is I could actually, hear the crowd and see my teammates at the end of the lanes on both ends. And it was a 100-yard butterfly, so it's forward length. So I actually swam around my suit 3 times as I went back and forth. But to make long story short, it was such a cool experience to hear the crowd. I ended up winning the race completely naked, but I got Disqualified because of a uniform code violation.
Seriously?
Yeah, which we're still appealing. We'll see. No. But I do remember a couple days later, I got a message from Pat to come down to see him in his office, and he's like, "You'll never believe this. I just got off the phone with the Tonight Show Jay Leno, and they flew my brother and I out there. We had a chance to experience that. A couple of my teammates actually road trip from Minnesota all the way out to Hollywood to be in the stands. But it was surreal to be, a Midwestern athlete from St. John's, to be on this big stage and get to experience that, all because I swam naked and won the race. But it was pretty cool.
Sometimes greatness is thrust upon you.
Agreed. Now, I'm sure there's a life lesson about keeping going in adversity, but no, it was just a great time. Yeah.
Who else was in the green room that night? Do you remember?
I do. So from a teammate standpoint, I think Jesse Bergman was there, Jeremy Hoagland, my brother was in the room, and it was such a crazy moment to be sitting there, and we get a knock on the door, and in walks, Jay Leno. And you're this. I'm such a naive kid from the Midwest sitting there, and Jay Leno walks in, and a couple things hit me. One was he's pretty short. I didn't realize he was that short. But two was he was so nice. We sat down, we talked. He just kind of broke the tension, made me feel comfortable, and it kind of transitioned into we just had a great time in the show, going back and forth. And so it was fun to be in the green room, fun to experience that whole thing, and just the whole bit of it was fantastic.
Well, that event is also a part of the hallway. I'm sure you've been up to see this. I mean, it's there forever now, right?
Yep, it's kind of cool. So those of you that want to see it, I'm on the wall in the Palestra holding up the suit, a mural holding up the suit that I lost, while I'm sitting on the stage with Jay Leno. It's a neat memory for sure. And I just want to say thank you for not representing the fact that I was up on the podium with a championship. No. You guys put the fact that I was on the Tonight Show with Jay Leno as a mural, which is fine. Yeah.
Whose call was that? Anybody know? It might have been Adam Herbst's call.
Yeah, thanks, Adam. Hey, one thing I do want to say, just they a couple people have referenced this. It is such an honor to be a part of this inductee class. And they talk about swimming as an individual sport, and you definitely get out of it what you as an individual put in, but any athlete that achieves success, it's the culmination of so many people that helped along the way. So St. John's provided such an amazing community to the coaching, Pat Haws, to my family, who's in the room and upstairs. I appreciate every aspect of this. It's an honor to be a part of the class that's in here, and so thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Congratulations. Matt Zelen into the Hall of Honor. Our next inductee is Pat Haws.
The Haws family's head coaching legacy at St. John's now spans 3 generations, and the longest link in that familial chain was Pat Haws, who started the Johnny's swimming and diving program from scratch in 1973. His teams placed in the top 3 in the MIAC championships in 23 of his 25 seasons before stepping down in 1998. In 1978, he added head soccer coaching duties to his vast portfolio and went on to become the winningest coach at any level in Minnesota men's college soccer history. Under his guidance, the Johnnies won 7 regular season MIAC titles and reached the national tournament 7 times. He was twice named MIAC Coach of the Year. Welcome, Pat Haws, to the SJU J Club Hall of Honor.
You had not? Oh. Why did you refuse to see it until tonight?
I wanted to watch with my family.
Oh, well, that's important. That is important.
Family's the secret. And this is a family. Big family for us. You guys are so important to us here in Collegeville. We thank you for coming here. On that 63 team, I know that Craig Myers and Ken Raring, I think Ken Voss, played for my dad when they were in high school at Cathedral High School. And those guys, I was 10 and 11 years old when they were playing for Dad. they're my heroes from that high. I love those guys.
I've been looking forward to that. We used to do these interviews. You and I, we'd talk on Johnny's Magazine. We'd do the soccer preview, and you'd talk about your players. And so I've been looking forward to this for a while. And
one more thing I got to clear up. You said the giants, these athletic giants here. I played football on the bench. I wrestled on my back, and I pole vaulted on the ground. I was a better tuba player than I was an athlete. And look at this. You bring me into this. That's awesome.
you're a great leader of this athletic department, and I think everybody knows that, and you're still giving back to the program. You still help out your son, and you know what? You have a legacy, and you deserve to be up here just like these guys.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Let's talk a little bit about you. You mentioned your father, and what kind of advice did he pass along to you when you started your coaching career?
Well, Dad died on February 2nd of 1973, and the night of January 31st, he and Mom stayed at our apartment with Mary Ann and I in the cities. Dad and Mom were flying to Cleveland to catch up with his two-time defending National Catholic College wrestling team, wrestling champions, the next morning. And that evening, Dad was he should have never been on that trip. He was just buckled over with pain. His heart was dying. And he said to me in the kitchen, "You want to coach, don't you?" And I said, "Yeah, Dad, that's what I want to do." And he said, "Get to college as fast as you can." I was my first year out of St. John's. I was teaching and coaching football, wrestling, and track at the Academy of the Holy Angels in Richfield. 36 hours later, he's dead. And that's what I've got. I still have that burning in me. Get to college as fast as you can. And so I started applying for a job here. I applied for his job as head wrestling and assistant football to John Gallardi. And thankfully, I didn't get hired. But because I never was prepared to coach football with John Gallardi. I could have lied myself through a wrestling thing, but and all of a sudden, I'm a swimming coach here because I took care of the swimming pool, municipal pool at St. Cloud, and I knew chlorine. And that was my background to become a swimming coach here. Jim Smith was smart enough to hire me, and it just started. That's how it started. And it culminated with Matt Zelen. He was the last great guy we had, great swimmer we had in the team. And isn't he awesome? I don't know if you remember watching him on Leno, but he blew me away on Leno. We were so proud of Matt, and still are.
So how did you go about with, as knowing chlorine, and that's maybe it, and then recruiting some great talent here, building two great programs, swimming and diving, and of course soccer. What laid the groundwork? Well, two good friends of ours from St. Cloud through my dad in Cathedral were Mike Augustin and Pat Royce. And Mike Augustin was kind of pursuing a cousin of mine in Denver when I got the job at St. John's. And all of a sudden I got a telegram from Mike Augustin congratulating me on becoming a coach at St. John's. And he said something to me about Doc Councilman. I never heard of Doc Councilman. You didn't have Google in those days. And so I just kind of scratched in my head, and I discovered that Doc Councilman was Mark Spitz's coach. Spitz had just won seven golds in the Olympics. So somehow I stumbled upon the science of swimming by Councilman, and that became my Bible. But the very first time I met this group of guys who were going to start St. John's swim team as swimmers, I had to be honest with them. Guys, I lied. I don't know anything about swimming, but I'm going to coach here, and we're going to become a really good team. So you're going to have to help me. And there's a couple guys way in the back who were part of that conversation who did that. They were willing to help. Strummy,
Steve Strumme, Jeremy Rass, John Hobbins back there, I think Tom Scanlon. Those were the guys in the room, and they kind of took me up on it, and off we went. We finished, that first year, we finished 7.5 points out of second place in the MIAC, and we're unbelievable. They were unbelievable, and that's how it started. And then when John Gallardi assigned me soccer, I tried to tell him, John, I don't know anything about soccer. He said, what do you know about swimming? I said, nothing. And he said, well, you did it there, you'll do it again. So all of a sudden, I've got this soccer team, and the first time I saw them, what did I do? Guys, I got to sign this job, and I don't know anything about soccer. You're going to have to teach me. The first year, we were 6 wins and 5 losses. The next year, we were undefeated. We were 14-0-1 when we lost to, in the playoffs, we lost to Quincy College, who eventually was the national champion. And all of us, we just took off. Leroy Lilly and Colleen Lilly played a big role in helping us recruit. And I am so blessed, but it's because guys like you came to St. John's and trusted guys like me to direct you. Gary's sitting right here in front. He knows that. He's not good enough to win a ball game as good as he is. It takes us relying on you and you believing in us, and we get that thing done. So,
I got one more question for you. Leroy Lilly, who, go ahead if you want to, that was a great answer. Leroy played for John. He was an outstanding football player here. How did you tie in to him, and how did he help you?
His sons were playing for us, Mike and Pat. And Pat was St. John's first soccer All-American. He was unbelievable, and he was the nicest guy. And then his brother Pat. I actually coached Pat for a season, I believe. And Leroy he's in love with St. John's. And he was trying to get people to come to St. John's, and it turned out soccer was one of his wedges. So Leroy and I we'd just kind of wait like for the all-state team to come out, and then Leroy and I would do our trick, and we'd get 10 of them. Our record during the 80s is we had the 7th best win-loss record of any team at any level in the whole of NCAA. And then all of a sudden, the other schools started hiring full-time coaches. I mean, I was about the only full-time, only one recruiting, so we had an in that way. It became more difficult, but one of my big thrills with soccer was I get to coach my son John and my son Jimmy here. And I'm sorry.
No, it's your night. You can do this. It's your night, and it must mean a lot to you to see. And boy, did John get a big win today down on the road at St. Mary's today.
Oh boy, yeah, he did. I was trying to find it. They weren't streaming it. That's why I was in John's office trying to stream the football game. I can't do that either from here. And they weren't streaming your game, John, so I don't have no clue what was going on. So I'm texting his trainer, tell me what's the score? And finally at halftime, she texted back, we're up 3-1. Good, we're going in the right direction. So anyway.
It's good you're still involved. Pat, congratulations.
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it, Pat.
Pat Haws into the Hall of Honor at St. John's University. Our final inductee tonight is Blake Elliott.
If you look at the St. John's football record book, you will see the name Blake Elliott next to 11 offensive records. The dynamic big play receiver from Melrose holds virtually all of the school's receiving records, and he was unequaled as a kickoff and punt returner. His electrifying runs and acrobatic catches had fans on the edge of their seats every time he touched the football. Blake was a 3-time All-MIAC selection, a 2-time Conference Most Valuable Player. He was also a 3-time All-American. As a senior in 2003, Elliott led the Johnnies to their 4th national championship as he broke the game open with the 51-yard run out of the backfield against Division III power Mount Union in the title game. Elliott became the second player in program history to win the Ghilardi Trophy, awarded annually to the top Division III player on and off the field. Welcome Blake Elliott to the SJU J Club Hall of Honor.
It's your night. It's your night. You can say whatever you want.
But before we start, first off, I'll be fast. I think that let's go means let's hurry up and get this over with. So I'll be quick. I'm the most unpopular guy in the room. I'm the guy that's keeping everyone from an open bar and storytelling. So we'll speed this along.
Well, what time is it?
Yeah, I got it.
Oh, we're right on time, my man. We are right on time. All right. Okay. Yes. This is your night. This is your moment. One of many. You win the Ghilardi Trophy, John, the wins record, national championship. Take us back to what that season was like for you as, 21, 22 years of age?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of you guys mentioned this, football especially is a team sport. I was lucky enough to be a part of some really great teams and some, St. John's football has had some really great times, but 2000 through 2003 was a great run. 2000 we kind of lose a squeaker to Mount Union in the Stag Bowl. The next year we go to the Final Four and lose in the semifinals. The year after that we go to the Final Four and lose in the semifinals. And then my senior year we finally win the national championship. So first of all, some really great teams, and to sprinkle in John setting some records that probably will never be broken. It was a magical time for sure.
Pretty, what game isn't talked about is the St. Thomas game from the year. Not talked about much. I mean, 409, but that Tommy game, I think it ended up 15-12. That was as hard fought a St. Thomas St. John's game as I can remember.
Well, and I think a perfect testament maybe is to this year's football team, right? They have some high expectations. No pressure there, Gary, but some high expectations, and they've had some games where they've had to squeak a couple out, and we had the same thing in 2003 where we didn't unfortunately play perfect every game, and you got to win those ones where you're not firing on all cylinders.
You're very big, and the crowd at the game today heard some of the things you're involved with. How much of that comes back here to St. John's? Because you have launched some companies that are all about helping other people.
Yeah, a couple things with that. First off, just being at St. John's and going to school at St. John's, I think that was really instilled very early on. And I was a biochem major, and you have labs a couple times a week, and I remember kind of stressing, oh, crap, I'm going to be late for football practice. I probably can't do these labs. And John and the coaches right away were like, no, hustle up, get your pads on, run out to the field if you're 15, 20 minutes late, and so this balance between, football, academia, the community was always, really set in place. And I think, John's taught all of us a lot of lessons, and as I age here, one of the biggest things I think that he's taught me, and I've been lucky enough to have really two teachers in this. It's been John, and my mom, who's with us, is just retired after almost 50 years of teaching. Is they've been able to make some amazing impact on thousands and thousands of people with just one person. And so I think that's something that I take from my mom and I take from John, and I'm trying to carry forward and do my best in that area.
Do you get to talk to many of the football players on this year's team? Do you try to, I'm sure Gary has had you at different times probably talk to the team, and what kind of lessons do you try to instill in them?
I think, yeah, I have had some opportunities to get to know them, and again, that is part of the great culture of St. John's athletics. Is it's so intergenerational. There's so many people in this room from the '63 team, from the '70s and the '80s and the '90s that have been so influential for me, and I hope to try to be able to pay that back and try to pay it forward in some way. First and foremost, for the kids that are in college, just enjoy it. Those are great years. Enjoy it and breathe it in, whether it's running out for a football game or whether it's, being in Tommy Hall as a freshman. I was in Mary Hall, by the way, but yeah. But yeah, breathe it in. Enjoy every minute of it, because it's a great time in your life.
Well, Blake, congratulations, and you are the last inductee for the night, and welcome to the Hall of Honor.
One more thing. Sorry. One more thing. Politicking for those of you in the room that are voting for the next class. Tom Burnett Jr., football player at St. John's. This is the Hall of Honor, and they talked a little bit about that. It's one thing to have honor by catching a couple touchdown passes against Hamlin. It's another thing to have honor by sacrificing your life in terms of taking down a plane on 9/11 to save thousands of people. So think about that for the next year.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Blake. Blake Elliott into the SJU Hall of Honor. We're not done just yet. Luke, come on up. We're going to turn the microphone over to Luke here. We're going to do a couple of things before we get out, and he'll talk about that, the honoring process and things like that. Luke.
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. Let's give it up for Mark, our MC for the night. So my name is Luke Vestrom. I'm on the J Club board. It was my honor to help put this event on. I want to really thank everyone here for supporting St. John's Athletics, the Hall of Honor, and the J Club. We really appreciate your support. While tonight's event is coming to a close, that means the nomination process for the next year's class is officially open. So as Blake mentioned, start thinking about who we want to bring up here for next year's event. The nomination process is open to any active J Club member. For any members who are here tonight, thank you for your support. If you're not currently a member, there's 2 easy ways to become. You can go to gojohnnies.com. Otherwise, you can pick up one of these brochures, and we would encourage you to take one of these home tonight as a memento of tonight's event. You can find them at the table in the back. And before you go, I would ask the inductees to quick come up for a group picture tonight so we can capture this historic event. Aside from that, I'm going to let you guys go to the bar, go home. I wish you all safe travels, and I appreciate you coming tonight. Thank you all.
Okay, so as Luke said, if we could get all the honorees up here, the football, the 63 guys, and everyone else who is now in the Hall of Honor. Thank you.